Okay, hello everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you. Thank you for your presentation. I think we're running a little bit short of time, so I will try to keep this short. I also think there's Friday prayer starting at 12 o'clock, so I have a little bit of time. But afterwards, of course, you can also come to me, speak to me if you have any questions regarding this topic which I'm going to present now, which is digital out of home. So myself, my name is Tobias HIDDEMANN. I'm a managing partner for Delta Dry, and we are a German-based consulting company in the areas of telecoms, media, and IT. And first of all, before starting, maybe digital out of home. Does anybody know what this is about? Have you heard of this before? No, not very many people know what it is. This is good because I'll just go right in and explain to you what digital out of home is. And so, initially, just a short introduction. What is it about? What I'm going to talk about, digital out of home. Next to that, why is it a relevant topic? So why should you consider this area, this industry? Then I will explain how it works, what are the elements that are important in this respect, and followed by best practice examples and a short summary. By the way, I'm obviously presenting in English. If you're not too familiar with it, you can get the earphones in the back just for a translation of this lady over here. Okay, so starting right away, digital out of home. I think it's a very important topic. I heard that we have also some media students today attending this session. I think it's an area that could be of interest for you as well, but also for telecoms and IT operators. Okay, digital out of home, what is it about? Basically, to put a very brief definition of the topic, this is about, well, here we go. It's about advertisement via digital screens in public places. The former speaker just introduced to us that screens are now almost everywhere. Wherever you go on the underground, you go on the streets, there's screens everywhere. And basically, digital out of home means advertisement on this network infrastructure. So you have the advertisement, which then goes to the screens, to the public space. And we have seen all these screens around. We have seen the kiosk systems. We have seen the bus shelters, for example. We have just examples of the taxis. Screens are everywhere now, and this is basically what I'm going to talk about to you, because this is a new opportunity for ICT operators. There's a very important aspect of this is advertisement. This whole industry is about ad-based networks. So you have the advertising which is distributed via the screens to the public sphere. And this is a difference between digital out of home, which is a term that I'm going to use today, compared to digital signage, another term that you may be familiar with or not, which is basically just information screens which are not ad-based. So why is it relevant? Why is advertisement so important? For me as a business person, of course, this is where the money comes in. So basically you have the screens in the infrastructure, in the city, in the municipalities, and then you can have advertisement on them. Of course, this is where the big money comes into. So just a very brief overview, digital out of home, what I'm going to talk about. There's basically three different scenarios where you can present content or advertisement to people. The first is, of course, the point of transit. We know there's train stations at the airport. Wherever you just walk by, you can have a message there, advertisement to the audience. Next to that, of course, point of sales, so where people really buy things, you can have influence on the buying decision itself at the point of sales. And then, last but not least, the point of wait. This is where you sit down, have to wait for something, and then you have the screens which are giving you information as well as advertisement. So what is the difference between these three? Basically, the difference is the attention span. How much time do you have to communicate to these people? For example, advertisement. Of course, at the point of transit, you have very little time, so you have to get this message across quickly, compared to point of sales and point of wait, where you have more time to get the message or the advertisement across. And accordingly, you have, of course, for example, here you have 100% ads. So these screens are just showing ads all the time for a very brief moment, maybe 5 seconds only, because people are driving by with their cars, walking by, you have very little time, so 100% ads. Different situations, a point of wait, where you sit down, you spend a little bit of time, maybe at the doctor's or in the elevator, you have to have a different mix of content. Because if you show 100% ads here, people won't just not look anymore, because they're not interested in this anymore. So you have to add in, for example, news or business or weather information, so it's a different composition that you have to present to the audience. So this has to be taken into consideration. Now I would just like to follow up with a few real-life examples. You have seen these, I'm very sure, on the streets. This used to be billboards, so printed. Basically just showing one advertisement the whole time, not changing, maybe being replaced every 2 weeks or so. So this is a point of transit, you're just driving by or you're at the train station. Other examples include, for example, for the point of sale, you have supermarkets or malls. So I myself, I have been involved in a big project in Germany from Deutsche Telekom, and they now have rolled out such a digital out-of-home network in the supermarkets. So you enter a supermarket and you have the screens welcoming you. And because we all know in a supermarket you have to go a certain route. You start with the, for example, the vegetables or the fruits, and you have to walk around all the store. So what they're doing in Germany now is when you enter, they grab your attention with a screen, elevator for example, where you just try to avoid not to look each other in the eyes, and then you have the time to provide advertisement. Okay, so now we have a better understanding what digital out-of-home really is. But the question is, why is it relevant? I mean, why do we talk about this? We all see these screens, but what does it mean? So, okay, I would just like to go into this. So, first of all, what is the difference of these screens that we've seen? First of all, these screens are much more efficient compared to, for example, print media. So, in the past, traditional media, you had one sign, you had one board, which would stay there for 2 weeks, the same message at the same time to everybody. But now, with digital screens, you can have more than one message, more than one advertisement, more than one information in the same place. And you can use it accordingly to the time of the day. For example, at the airport, in the morning, you would like to maybe address a certain message to business people. Later in the day, you'd like to address to, for example, holiday people. So this gives you a much more efficient use of this space, because the board itself is fixed, the size of it, the space you have, but now you can use it more efficiently. More ads in one screen, also interesting for the owners of the space, such as, for example, municipalities or any kind of landlord. So efficiency is a topic. Next to that, we have the impact. Because if you're now able to tell a story, more than just one sign, but you really can speak to the people, you can add audio, for example, you can have a real different message that is much more convincing, and that is increasing the impact. We have seen the point of sales, so if you really can talk to somebody at the point of sales that influence what he or she is buying, that's a big impact for the digital screens, which cannot be achieved with traditional media as easily. We have the costs. So you might imagine, okay, setting up all this infrastructure, screens, displays must be very expensive, and isn't that a problem? The facts are actually this is cheaper compared to traditional media. And why is that? Of course, initially you have the expenses, you have the capital expenditure to set it all up. This is an investment you have to do. But think about it. Once this is installed and once it's running, you can easily replace the advertisement, for example. You're much more flexible compared to print media, where you need people to drive out every 2 weeks to exchange the billboards. So you have costs reduced, and you also have, for example, screens are getting cheaper every day. So the cost of this network is actually lower compared to traditional media. It's another advantage of digital out of home. And last but not least, my favorite point, innovation. Because these screens, they give you so much more ability to connect to the consumer. You can have touch screens, you can have people interact with the screen itself. You can have people with their mobile phones, maybe via Bluetooth, or get in touch. You're interested in a certain ad, for example. You can just request information right there at the screen. So this is much more innovative and all in all more effective. So this is concerning digital out of home, but also we have more general trends, including, for example, digitalization. We know everything is digital now, payment or music, everything is digital. The same is happening in the public sphere. So another trend, of course, the displays are getting larger, cheaper. We have HD everywhere now. So this is another trend that fuels this industry. And last but not least, we have networks that are much faster these days. So you can machine-to-machine communication, you can get this information to the screens, even when they're driving around the city. We have the example of the buses, for example, or taxis. Driving around town, you can feed them with 4G or 3G networks, so the information can be distributed. And what is the effect of all that? What does it lead to? What it leads to basically is that we see a worldwide growing market with growing rate of 14% per year worldwide. So this is today close to $10 billion US market, and it's still growing fast. So this is basically why it's a relevant thing. This is why I'm going to present this to you, because this industry is growing, and it's growing fast, and it's getting significant in its size. Okay. So coming from Germany myself, coming from Europe, the interesting thing is that the share of digital compared to the total out of home is still in its early stages, even in Europe, Germany, even in Europe. So we see 2010 compared to 2015, this share of digital is increasing significantly. It's rather small today, 2010 figures, but even in Germany you can see it's growing by 300%. But, interesting, compared to China, for example, we are much beyond the development in China. It's much advanced comparing this digital aspect. So this is still a lot of growth potential in Europe and in the Middle East it is. So in this overview, we'll just go through quickly. We have leading markets such as India, China and Russia, USA, Canada. And we have all this which is still growing, including the Middle East, including Turkey, but also Germany. And we are moving into this area where we're growing the maturity phase. So let's have a look, for example, in this cluster. We see that Germany, German-speaking parts of Europe, we still have the similar growth, but it's even larger than the global growth rates. We have 24% growth per year. And the year 2011, we have already €500 million of business. So this is significant. And this is what I'm saying is an interesting possibility for operators to enter. The interesting thing is that if you look here, hardware and integration, where ICT operators are basically located, account for 61% of this revenue. So this is where digital out-of-home networks really make a difference for operators to enter. Okay, so I hope everybody now sees that this is an interesting market to become active in, but how does it work? Which elements have to come together? How can I participate in this? And there's basically 5 elements that come together. First of all, you have the content. You need information or any kind of information. Can be advertisement that is then transported to the hardware, which is displays, media plays, for example, combined with the software, of course, so the encoding, the composition and everything. And going to integration, where now everything comes together as a network. You have the locations, you have the connectivity, and you have the field service to operate this network. And finally, of course, you have to sell this. So the capacity, your network capacity, similar to a mobile operator, you can sell this network capacity, of course, to advertisers. And the interesting thing is, about 80% of this can be covered by ICT operators. So maybe not the first step, but 80% of it, this is really where ICT operators are focusing. So I go through this very quickly. Of course, many players are active in this field. And now, especially Deutsche Telekom and Korea Telecom, I'll just go to this very quickly to show you how successful they are today. So the best practice examples, starting off with Deutsche Telekom. So Deutsche Telekom, I've been working with them for 2 years on this topic. They're a relative new player. So they just started in 2010. So they've just entered 2 years ago. And they made the decision to launch in Germany And they now have more than 2,500 locations that are covered with displays and more than 8,000 screens. So it's a large network. What did they do? They focused mainly on premium locations. So they did, for example, airports, supermarkets and malls, but also sports arenas. So these are the channels where they have displays in place which can present advertisement. They also were very innovative. So because they are a new player, they entered with very innovative displays. This is an example. These are at the airports in Germany, where you can interact with the screen. It's a touch screen, and it's a large HD display. And these displays are very smart. So basically, they can track if it's a woman or a man standing in front of the screen. Or they can track, is it a grown-up person or is it a child, for example. And they can track how much attention the screen gets. So are you looking for 2 seconds, or are you looking for 10 seconds, or for 1 minute? So this is all information that's very relevant for advertisers. So they did all these three things. They did premium locations, they did innovation with new technology, and the results were very impressive. So in Germany now, they are #1 integrator, and they have the second largest digital out-of-home network, and with revenue growth of 29% from 2010 to 2011. So it's an opportunity, for example, for telecommunication operators. Another example, just very briefly, is Korea Telecom. Korea Telecom launched a little earlier, as early as 2005, and they are now more than 50% market share in Korea. They have more than 42,000 screens, so it's a large digital out-of-home network. I'll just go through it very briefly. I think we don't have too much time, but this is, for example, as a bus shelter where you wait for your bus. You can look at advertisement as well as information. And in the elevators, for example, they have a large network. Okay, so what is this? Why is it so interesting? I believe that the interesting thing is that ICT operators, this is basically what they are used to. They are used to operating networks. They are used to having, for example, hardware and manpower to service a network. So this is in place, networks, locations. They have their own infrastructure, they have their own stores, they have the public space that can be combined for this digital out-of-home network. They have the distribution knowledge. They know how to get information from A to B, and they often also have IPTV solutions in place, which can be used for digital out-of-home. And next to that, they have a trusted brand. So, for example, a large operator, he has the commitment as well as the capital to create such a digital out-of-home network. So, and if you all these combine, you can become a very significant player in this industry. Okay, just to briefly sum it all up, the important message for today: this market is a booming market. Digital out-of-home is growing. It's growing fast, and we've seen there's lots of growth potential, especially in Europe and in the Middle East. Okay, next to that, you have existing assets and capabilities that can be used. For example, telecom and IT operators. They can just use their knowledge in this new area and benefit from the growth potential. You should differentiate yourself by innovation. This is basically where IT and telecom operators, this is a core competence. Because as we all know, telecommunications, IT is changing very quickly. So this is something they are used to, they can use in this new industry. And last but not least, my partner and myself, today we are here, just the time is now, you act now, it's a good opportunity, so you can just talk to us right now or after the session, of course. So just very briefly ourselves, we are a managing consultancy, Delta Drive from Germany, and based in Germany, these are the areas telecom, media, technology. Focus is mainly Europe and the Middle East, and we have a lot of experience, so thank you very much for your attention, and here we go.